sometimes make mistakes, but as soon as I understand that a mistake is made or a listener is correcting me, I will acknowledge it immediately. Now, there's a couple of things we may disagree on, like some of my listeners believe I'm a big jerk, but that's very, very subjective opinion. Not logic or reason at all. As a matter of fact, hating Trump does not come from a place of logic or reason. I've been having this discussion with some of my Facebook friends and old friends, I mean, going back to childhood, for many, many years. There is no logical or rational explanation for Trump hating. You can point to who he is, because he is obnoxious at times. You can point to that and say, I don't like him or whatever. But some of my friends are out of their minds with Trump hatred. I mean, they blocked me or dropped me as a friend on Facebook, or sometimes, in one case, and I was surprised by this fall, I had an old friend. I've known him for 30 years. He dropped me as a friend. I mean, not as a Facebook friend, as a friend. And that's very regrettable. But I understand that this is all based on a false assumption. All this hatred is based on a false assumption. That if we hate Trump enough or fear his return enough, because that's what's behind this. Again, it's not logical or reasonable to hate Trump, but there are a number of emotional reasons that have nothing to do with science or fact, and those are the real reasons that people hate Donald Trump. They hate his appearance, they hate the things he says, they hate the things that he does, on and on and on. But as you can see, he's still standing. I mean, the latest woman, I think, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, please, by calling 955-1400. I should have looked this up before I got on the air. I think the woman who accused Trump of raping her in a dressing room at a department store and then sued a number of years later, I believe she's had her case dismissed. And if you read the liberal media, for God's sake, Trump's raping somebody once a week or maybe every single day. And I'm sad to report that the horrendous crime of rape, which I find disgusting, rape in our states and in many states was at one time punishable by death. But the noble ones on the Supreme Court a number of years ago decided that the death penalty was too extreme for the crime of rape. Now, unfortunately, they used a case in Louisiana where a grown man raped a child and brutalized her in such a fashion that she had internal injuries and will never be able to procreate. They spoke out on that case. This was another one of those cases where Associate Justice Kennedy had to go off and brood for a while. He was such a great thinker, according to him. He was such a believer in the law. In other words, he was a believer in things that came out of his own head. But again, Trump hasn't been found guilty of rape. He's been found guilty and convicted in the court of public opinion, and probably justifiably, he's been convicted of being an obnoxious jerk, which he certainly is. But he speaks for people who feel they are no longer heard, and those people are still out there. And if you look at Joe Biden's polls right now, he's at 34%, Fox News just reported. Of course, Fox News is not nearly as impartial as MSNBC or the NBC network. So we have to question Fox News, but never touch NBC or MSNBC. But it was just reported on Fox News not too long ago that according to the latest polling, Joe Biden's positivity ratings are at 34%. I believe that's lower than Donald Trump had in all 4 years. And the reason that Joe Biden is suffering from such low polls number is he's a liar. He ran as a moderate. Remember, the Democratic Party certainly didn't want Sanders, Bernie Sanders, or Elizabeth Warren. They were afraid of Sanders and Warren. Oh, they'd be branded socialists. And believe me, Nancy Pelosi with that walled-in mansion in San Francisco, she's not. She's not a socialist. And the lifestyle that she lives, no, she's not a socialist. And the power and attention she obviously craves. My God, the woman's in her 80s, and she still demands to be Speaker of the House. But I see on the horizon Nancy Pelosi's last hurrah. It's not going to happen again. Of course, some of the Democrats, a certain percentage of Democrats, wanted her to step aside as Speaker the last time she was Speaker and didn't want to see her renominated this time around. But let's not forget what this is all about. This is about power seeking. And when I say the reason Joe Biden's poll numbers are so low because he's a liar, because he is a liar. Remember when he campaigned that nothing was really going to change? He told a lot of wealthy people that. He didn't tell you and me that. But he ran as a moderate. That's what the Democrats put him up there for. Not because anybody was demanding Joe Biden be president, not because he had a cult of personality like Reagan did, like Bill Clinton did, like Barack Obama did, and Trump, as a matter of fact. Those presidents had a cult of personality around them. They were loved or they were hated. Joe Biden had none of that magnetism, and that's what you need to be president in the 21st century, a certain magnetism. And Joe's really a hack politician. He was Senator Credit Card. Remember, all the credit companies were, a lot of credit companies have their home offices in Delaware, and there's a reason they have their home offices in Delaware. I was watching an old rerun of The Sopranos the other night, and The Sopranos were putting money on the street, loan sharking. And the gangsters were talking about where they got the idea, where the older mafioso got the idea. They got the idea from credit card companies. They got the idea from credit card companies. Here, we're going to give you all this credit. We're going to give you no interest at first, but then we're going to bang you with really high interest rates in, 6 months or a year, whatever the credit card company is. And the mafioso, talking in the television show, The Sopranos, said people were dumb enough to take that deal and then thank the credit card company for a card, even though they would be paying for years. In other words, according to the gangsters in the show, instead of shearing a sheep once, they'd shear the sheep several times. Well, that's what Joe Biden was protecting in Delaware. He got Chuck Grassley, if you remember, many years ago now. Chuck Grassley. This was going to be a bipartisan deal. If you declared bankruptcy before this wonderful deal that Grassley and Biden were a part of, you got a clean slate. You could get rid of all your debts and start over. You just had to take the shame of bankruptcy and the poor credit that at that time followed you around for years and years and years. Along come Grassley and Biden. And of course, Biden was definitely in the background, but and of course, Grassley had an interest in doing this because he's a Republican and wants to protect large privately held wealth. But Biden had an entirely different agenda. The credit card companies were big supporters of his, big employers of his in his home state. So Biden was interested in changing the bankruptcy law so that nobody could get a clean slate anymore. He was serving his credit card companies. That's why he was called Senator Credit Card. He was almost like a personal representative for the credit card companies in the Senate and in Congress. Now, if you have a United States senator in your pocket, you can do practically anything. And let's not forget that a lot of these companies are really loan shark activities. They don't come and break your legs, but they'll ruin you. You either pay or they'll ruin you. That's what Biden wanted to protect. There's something like, Biden still has that old, Rat Pack, Frank Sinatra time about him. That was really his time. That's why he still gets in trouble. when he refers to a great pitcher like Satchel Paige as a Negro? Who gets to call, still in this day and age, and I really consider Negro an offensive term, and I will not allow it in my presence. But I will repeat it if a major figure does. And the major figures are Joe Biden and Harry Reid. Democrats, influential Democrats, powerful Democrats of a certain age and a certain time when that word was tossed around pretty frequently. It's shameful as far as I'm concerned. Let's not forget the great Democratic Senator Robert Byrd, who was in the Ku Klux Klan. And he served until he was 92 years old. He died in office. But that's the double standard that we have, and we shouldn't. So this sort of hypocrisy from Joe Biden is the reason he's at 34%. And what's he doing? Running around closing pipelines where a lot of working people were making a lot of money on Keystone XL. They were making $30 an hour base pay. The argument wasn't David Osterberg of Common Good Iowa, who is a long time environmentalist, and I'm not going to discuss it with him again because it's pointless. He always hammered away at the idea, well, these pipelines are short-term work. You know, if you have a cushy job somewhere in the state or at the federal level like Joe Biden does, and Nancy Pelosi do, it doesn't mean anything if you can make really good money for a year, let's say. You cannot, but to a working person, a job that lasts that long at that kind of money, that's a big deal. But the Democrats, well, you know this, they don't care about working people, especially working white people. They kind of hate them. Working white people are the reason they believe, and there's something to it, that Trump was elected in the first place. And of course, Trump was just terrible because he called these people out. That's why they're still trying to ruin him. That's why we have these ongoing January the 6th sends, we're going to subpoena Steve Bannon. And Bannon, of course, really told, I think he did say something like this. Didn't he tell Nancy Pelosi to kiss his big, wide, white Irish ass? I think that's what he did say. Excuse the language. It's not something I usually say on the radio. But that's what was said on video around the world and in newscasts around the world. So, yeah, I appreciated Steve for these people. And it really is time to put these public employees in their place, isn't it? I mean, they want to present themselves as all powerful. There's something sick and twisted about that sort of thrust for power. I mentioned to a Facebook friend who wanted me to believe, apparently, that Trump was a demon, apparently, and we barely escaped, and we should all be thankful to the Democrats and Joe Biden for relieving us. Well, take a look at your grocery bill and your gas bill, and we're really going to feel it. Next month, it's going to get cold, really cold. We're really going to feel the effects of the Joe Biden presidency in December, January, and February. You better start putting your little acorns away for winter because you're going to need them. Because Biden is, Bill Horn, you heard Bill Horn talk yesterday that the Biden administration is laser focused on green energy and especially electric cars. Somehow the idea of getting in a car and buzzing down a interstate at 67 or 70 when the vehicle sounds like a lawnmower or a golf cart, it just doesn't do that much for me. You know what I mean? It just doesn't do that much for me. And the 300-mile range doesn't do that much for me either. Of course, I came from the time when I was in high school during the muscle car years. All the car manufacturers were putting together these big super sport type of cars, and wow. Mustang came along. I mean, Chevy had Corvette out for a long time, but Ford came along with Mustang, the pony cars, and then after that, it was old super sports and what was that big 440 Plymouth they used to have? I don't know. But the Super Bee was there. The Dodge had Charger, and they had Super Bees. Those were cool cars, man. I'll tell you, they were way cool cars. Anyway, you can always call this program and comment by calling 955-1400, 955-1400. I can see all the news I'm not supposed to report here today by looking at the Fort Dodge Messenger that Fort Frenzy is going to open a Godfather's Pizza. I guess that news I can't report because it's in the Messenger. Also, I can't report, looking at today's Messenger again, is that lo and behold, Webster County's getting ready for winter. That's deep, really relevant reporting.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD, banging Monday through Friday from 2 to 5.
It's 2:30.
By shopping at the Key on Central, you can help victims of sexual assault, domestic violence, trafficking, stalking, homicide, and other violent crimes.
plants we have in Iowa, and I think we have 42 plus a bunch of the ones that do biodiesel as well. But it doesn't mean that because we're doing electric cars, we're not going to do any ethanol at all, and we're going to heck in a handbasket. It doesn't mean that, but it does mean that we can be very fast, and we can also keep what's there. Because realize, if we get up to what they say that the goals for electric vehicles by 2030, we might have 30% of the total production would be e-vehicles, electric vehicles. But that's still 70% that aren't. Mm-hmm. And that's still this whole bunch that's already been produced. And those people say, this is the end and we've got to, stop things like electric cars, just aren't thinking. And in Iowa, we've already seen that transition from one energy source to another with wind. Boy, there are a lot of wind jobs. There are a lot of solar jobs. It didn't mean that as soon as we decided we were going to do something about how clean our electric system was, everything died. That's not right. It is a transition. And any transition that I would want would not be so fast that we just ruin everything in the process.
Well, I talked with Bill Horan yesterday, who's in Washington, D.C., talking about biofuels. You remember our friend Bill?
I remember him. You bet.
Yeah. Bill's a good guy, semi-retired. He was he's going to be in Washington, D.C. Then he's going to get himself down to Scottsdale, I guess, which makes him smarter than all of us. But he had been talking with concern to Senator Ernst and Senator Grassley. And what they heard back, what Bill and his group heard back, is that the Biden administration is laser focused on electric cars. They just can't get over themselves. They want to do this now, right now. And, any politician, any president has a window of opportunity. And the Democrats and in the Biden administration apparently think this is their window of opportunity. And so, I'm not surprised he's in Detroit because his poll ratings are at 34%. I could talk like this way to David. He is, of course, a specialist in climate, but he also served in the Iowa legislature. How many terms did you do, David?
I did 6 terms.
6.
I would not like to have a 34% approval rating. That's for sure. When I went to an election, we agree on that.
Well, and my personal opinion is, and this, is that people don't like that sort of rapid change. And it seems like the administration is hitting us in the face with her fist, that we're going to do this right now because.
Again, I'm going to say pretty much what I already said, is that when you look at estimates of how many electric vehicles there are going to be produced in, say, 2030, 2035, those are generally the years they look at, 30% is pretty much what they're going to be doing. That's what I think Exxon says it's going to be, 30%. So it's probably going to be in that area. 70% will not be, and 70% then will be using other fuels. I think we ought to be using more ethanol content in each one of the gallons we sell. And because it's better to have ethanol than it is to pull that brand new oil out of the ground. I'm pro. You can be pro electric cars and still want to see that this ethanol industry continues. Not all environmentalists agree with that. I'll give you that. But I think you can do them both, because it is not that people, for some reason, are saying this is going to change so fast we can't possibly deal with it. Look, Mid-American went from, mostly coal 15 years ago to mostly wind.
Sure.
That transition was done in a way that produced a whole lot of jobs for Iowa workers.
What sort of life expectancy does an electric car have? Now, many years ago, we used to think that a expensive car would last 20 years. That's, yeah, at 10 years, a car is really getting to age now. And that's been the case probably since the 90s. It's not that all cars expire at 10 years. Of course not. They're kept along and help, but they're by the time there's 10 years and over 100,000 miles, you're headed toward a new car.
Yeah, you probably are.
So
Yeah.
what is the life expectancy then of an electric car?
Well, again, we haven't been doing it for 10 years, so it's hard to say, isn't it?
Okay.
But there's no reason why they shouldn't last a lot longer. Think of how many moving parts there are. And, in an engine, gee whiz, think about the number of different things that there are. And when it comes to an electric car, they're like 17.
Okay.
So as far as the drive shaft, the drivetrain and stuff like that, there are so many fewer that it just seems like they ought to last longer, or at least last as long. I don't think that's going to be a big problem.
So you're convinced that we're going to be headed toward a time when electric cars are going to dominate the interstate system.
Well, again, think of that. If it's 30% are being produced every year, and then you're going to move that up, and 70% are still gasoline powered or diesel powered,
Mm-hmm.
no, they're not going to dominate by that year. They will eventually dominate.
Okay.
Yes, and they should. And in some places, they may already do that. Norway is one of the countries that's really moved toward electricity and renewable electric also, because, the Norwegians produce some oil, but mainly their electricity is produced by hydro. So, there are a lot of mountains and a lot of fast streams and a lot of electricity that comes out of a renewable source. So other countries are going to make that change. And inherently, because it is so much easier to do an electric drive train than one that's, very good and been around for a long time, I think we move towards electric for that reason too.
David Osterberg's our guest here at AM 1400, KVFT, the voice of Fort Dodge. David's with Common Good Iowa, and we're talking primarily about electric cars. You're older than I am, David, by some years, but you certainly remember the car culture of the 1960s. I mean, I can't imagine any garage band getting together and singing a love song to an electric car like Ronnie and the Daytonas did with Little GTO. Little GTO,
right,
you're looking really
right.
fine. I mean, you can't get that excited about a car that sounds like a golf cart.
Except, if you're not, it's good that we're talking age. when you pull up to a fast food place and you're riding in a Tesla, the kid who's giving you those burgers is saying, Jesus, I wish I had that. It is pretty cool, as a matter of fact.
Wow, I hope I get lucky and die before that happens. Oh, wow, really cool electric car.
Not maybe true for all electrics, but Tesla has this thing about them, right?
That's okay. You continue to find out more about my thinking, where it comes from. I mean, and this is when we talk electric cars, I keep remembering those days anyway. So I'm told. Let's see. I got a text message from a well-known Ford Dodge man. I will not reveal his name, but he's driving a Mach-E 100% EV, and it looks great. He tells me, and he ought to know. He knows a lot about cars and the car business.
Yeah, and the stuff they're coming out with is really cool. I mean, Tesla is cool, but how about one of these new Fords, these Ford trucks?
Oh, I think Fords are great automobiles, don't you?
I do too. I have one. I have two cars, and one is a hybrid, but it's still gas powered.
Sure.
But think of this: you roll up to that construction sight in your F-150, and in the front there are 4 little outlets, just like there'd be in your house, and you can plug a power tool into one of those outlets. Now that is a big change in how you think about your truck, and that's what you can do with electricity. And they're doing it. Ford is doing it. And if you put down a small amount, I guess maybe only $100, you can be in line to get one of those trucks when they start coming off the assembly line. And it's going to be pretty soon that they do. You know, my neighbor across the street, he's a reserved one. Actually, he's working 2 jobs right now so he can afford it.
You know, I used to be a car salesman. I was good at it because I liked cars. You know, I always liked cars.
Uh-huh.
I sometimes think I should do that again.
I didn't know this about you. That's good.
Yeah, no, I sold cars. My dad was a car salesman almost all my life. He sold, and he was good at it too. He told me he got his start in Rockford, Illinois, where he went door to door selling magazines, and he told me he was good at it. And I'll tell you, I never doubted that. If you knew my father, you knew he was a salesman. He was good at it. So I guess that's all that talking. Well, how I wound up here is primarily because of my father.
Yeah, well, you know, talking about our fathers, my dad also sold World Books door to door.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Now, there was a tough job.
Well, I know, but you could get them, you know, one at a time, I think. I'm not sure of that.
Well,
I better not say that.
That could have been the way they sold them, you know. If you,
Yeah.
you know, we'll keep sending you one every month. You can stop anytime and that sort of thing. But I think people were more used to door salesmen in our father's time than they are now.
Right.
You know, if somebody shows up at my door selling something, I just, you know, come on, man, get out of here. And I haven't had that happen in years. I don't know about you.
No, there are few religious types do come. Or them, and then the football team comes by my house.
Oh, they do?
Every
Oh, that
year.
would be cool.
Yeah, for new uniforms or something.
Oh, that's okay. And I don't.
That's okay.
Supporting the schools is just fine.
Of course.
Supporting the schools, I do everything I can to support. Anyway, we want to stay on topic. That's electric cars. Now you don't own.
We're doing a pretty good job. Now it's electric cars and our dads. We got 2 topics going.
God, I haven't talked this much about it. My dad's been gone since like 1986. I haven't talked this much about him. I don't know, in a long time. But anyway,
about when my dad went to 1994.
Okay, yeah. You know, time marches on. You know, what can you say? But I'm wondering now. You don't own an electric car right now, is that correct?
Oh, I do.
You do own. I thought you said you owned a hybrid.
I own 2 cars.
Okay.
One's a hybrid. One's a Ford, you know, the Ford Fusion, and the other is a Tesla.
A Tesla.
And when I say that, you say, "Well, God, how is he rich enough to do that?" When you look at the average price of a vehicle in America today, because it includes those F-150s and stuff, it's more than $40,000. So if you can get a Tesla for around $40,000, you're right at the average.
All right.
That's what I did. I
Okay.
got one in March.
From what I understand, the Biden administration is going to offer a tax incentive if you buy an electric car.
Tax incentive, that's right. And here's, you and I may agree on that. It's too big. It's way too big. $12,000 should not be the incentive, because that incentive then is not going to go to people living in a, you know, kind of a crappy house. It's going to go to the richest people. I think it ought to be much smaller. And then right now, the tax credits for solar are smaller than what they used to be. And they actually, I think this is where they did a good job, because they wrote them that said, as soon as you sold enough units to be viable, then we're going to cut the tax credit off. And that's what they did with Tesla. That's what they did with the Chevrolet Bolt also.
Okay.
They're passed. There's some tax credits still on the Leaf if you want to go out and buy one of those. But you ought to have some kind of an incentive. And there ought to be some kind of an incentive to make up for the fact that my registration for a car that didn't cost that much is about as high as any car any place in Iowa because they're trying to recapture the fact that I'm not paying for the roads through my gas tax.
Okay. Well, I guess these are tax credits, again, from a highly reliable source, impeccable source. First of all, this tax plan isn't the same across all brands.
No, it's in right, and I like tax credits.
I do.
Like
I think that
subsidies first. I mean, if you're going to do a tax credit, make sure it's refundable. So that means that lower income people who may not owe a lot of taxes can get benefits from that. And I always worry about tax credits because, if you worry, first of all, I worry about everything, right? Climate change. I also worry about what we do to poor people in this country, and we don't treat them very well.
Well, I could never understand some of my friends' hysteria over Donald Trump. This is just another aside. I'm wandering off here because I saw Trump as this kind of clownish figure, and he'd go away sooner or later. Okay. But my Democratic and liberal friends have gone insane over Donald Trump. They think he is somehow has the power to destroy the country or to change the country or something. I didn't think so, and I still don't. And I don't think it's a good idea for him to run in 2024 either. He very well might. But I'm not, I just don't have that sort of fear and worry.
I bet he won't, because he's basically lazy, and he can get by being the kingmaker, a lot of what that is. People be nice to him. That's all he cares about.
But presidential presidents love the camera. They love that adulation, and
they do. And any politician.
Oh, anyone did. I mean, from Ronald Reagan, G.W. Bush, Bill Clinton certainly loved the camera. He really loved that, and Trump is that. It's an odd thing that presidents can turn out to be, megalomaniacs in some. I understand Richard Nixon, and poor Richard Nixon. He was the camera and microphone were never kind to Richard Nixon, but he was, from what I understand, a megalomaniac. He just thought the country really needed him. And by the way, Bill Clinton supporters told him the same thing. We need you to save the country. You're the only one that can do it. Richard Nixon believed it. It turned out he was wrong. And I think that's the same with most presidents. But anyway, I digress again. I hope this has been a useful conversation on electric cars. David Osterberg is the man to talk to when you want to talk about these sort of things. I understand that Common Good Iowa now, is it just Common Good or Common Good Iowa?
Common Good Iowa.
Do you have your website up yet or not?
Yeah, we got it up.
All right. So we'll look for that and see if we can find more information all the time. David, thank you as always.
Hey, good to talk, Mike.
Good to talk. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort.
Here's a look at how the markets closed today. December corn down 2 1/4 at 5.73. March down 2 1/4 at 5.79 1/4. May down 2 cents at 5.83 3/4. And July down 2 at 5.84 3/4.
Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's Des Moines area attorneys. 666 Walnut Street, Suite 1710, Des Moines, Iowa, 50309.
From research to results, Rank Seed is rooted in technology. It starts with good genetics, and Rank Seed evaluates more than 80,000 data points of breeding material. By planting plots throughout the Midwest and Great Plains, we expose our genetics to a wide range of environments, which helps us select the best varieties. We then utilize the latest technologies, including robotics and color sorters, to ensure the highest germination and the best quality of seed, tirelessly striving to better serve our customers. Rank Seed, results since 1846.
Divine, the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
That AM 1400 KVFD.
You know, I've been doing this job 13 years, and I still occasionally forget which buttons to push, and I only have about 12 to choose from, so that's disturbing. Anyway, I want to welcome to the program Casey Face Johnson, who is with Fort Dodge Ford Lincoln Toyota. How you doing, Casey?
I'm doing wonderful, Mike. How you been?
Well, you're always wonderful, I think. I see Matt and Nick, your sons, and they're always wonderful, too. Everybody's wonderful.
I was very interested on your talk on electric cars as I listen to your show every day. And there's like 4 or 5 different classifications, and I don't know if everyone understands the meaning of all.
I certainly don't, and I don't think practically everybody listening doesn't. So this is a rare opportunity, and I appreciate you calling in. Please give us the
Well, there's basically 4 key types. You got an EV, which is an electric vehicle. You got a BEV, which is a battery electric vehicle. And then you got an HEV, which is a hybrid electric vehicle. And then a PHEV, which is a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. So how's that for confusing?
Well, that's confusing enough. Let's start with hybrids. David Osterberg last segment said he had a hybrid. Is that use fuel and electricity?
So that a hybrid vehicle is called an HEV, which stands for hybrid electric vehicles, and they run both on an internal combustion engine and electric motor. So they can go either way, and they're self-generating. So when you apply the brakes are generating the batteries. You can, as you're driving the car in the combustion engine, it in turn recharges the batteries. And so when the batteries are charged, it switches automatically to battery. And when they go out, it switches to your combustion engine. It's very simple.
Oh, okay. That is pretty simple. Are those cars more expensive than, say, just a gas-powered car?
Well, the number one vehicle in that market for forever and ever has been the Toyota Prius. And there's been 1 million Priuses sold. So this hybrid electric vehicle has been around for a long time. And they're fairly inexpensive. They range from $30,000 to $45,000. And really it's the manufacturers are not making the margins that they would on the normal cars that they produce. Because they really are making a push to get the electric vehicles out on the market. You know
Bill Horan.
I do.
Bill Horan was on the air with me yesterday. You probably heard me talking with David Osterberg about it. He's out in Washington, D.C., because he's very big and active in the biofuels industry. He's part of the Wall Lake biodiesel plant over there, as I recall. But anyway, Bill talked for some minutes about the Biden administration. Bill was talking with Senator Grassley and Senator Ernst, and he, or his group was, and he mentioned that the Biden administration, all their people, are hyper-focused on electric cars. Do you get that feeling from your perspective as a car dealer?
Yeah. Well, that's certainly all the hype, and that's the hype on Wall Street that drives stock prices. Ford is investing billions in electric vehicles, and they're building a plant with a Korean company in Alabama that will solely make batteries. So the demand, however, is not there like they are talking in the Biden administration. So it's still a reach, and there's a very small percentage are electric vehicles on the market because it's a big sell going from your combustible engine that you drove for years and years to make the switch overnight like they're claiming or by 2030. But what's really driving these are the CAFE standards from the federal government on what each manufacturer has to meet for fuel economy standards.
Yeah, and the CAFE standards are the fuel, are the I forgot I forgot what the acronym means now. Help me out. CAFE standards.
Yeah, I wouldn't even know either, but I always refer to the CAFE standards and it's just a mandate from the government what Ford or Chevrolet or Chrysler has to meet for fuel economy. So they would purposely build small cars to offset large trucks. And those small cars really weren't selling, and people want SUVs and big trucks still. So that was the drive towards hybrid. We need to bring those fuel economies standards in line. And, heck, you remember in the 60s and 70s, people were driving muscle cars with 454 V8s and 420 Cobra jets and getting 6 miles a gallon and weren't thinking anything about it.
Price of gas was like 35 cents a gallon then.
But, the conversation earlier was on EVs. And they're called EVs or BEVs. And EV is basically an electric vehicle, and it has absolutely no internal combustion engine whatsoever. Instead of gasoline, it runs solely on battery power. So it's got no exhaust, no emissions. It's 100% electric. And then BEV basically just stands for battery electric vehicles. So you basically plug them in at your house in 120 or 240 and charge them overnight. And most of the industry is around a 300-mile range on one full charge plug-in.
Yeah. Mark Campbell, county supervisor, was in here last week, and he surprised me by telling me there were plenty of charging stations around the state of Iowa. Do you know about that?
Yes, and there's a big push, and especially with Biden on the infrastructure bill, which includes a lot of these charging stations. And the infrastructure is possibly one of the roadblocks. If you have an electric vehicle and you want to make a run up to Minneapolis, you're going to probably scratch your head and say, I don't think I can do this. So, definitely for short-term runs, ideally the 100 to 200 mile before you can actually get back and do a charging system. And there's charging stations all over the United States, and you pay to have your car charged, and you can pay extra to have a supercharge and have it done quicker rather than the normal length of time it takes to charge a car.
There was a talk about tax credits when I was on the air with Osterberg. Can you fill us in a little bit more on that?
Well, a little bit of troubling there with the federal government on this. There is a tax credit for all brands across all boards for buying an electric vehicle. However, the administration wants to put a higher tax incentive with the UAW plants.
UAW plants.
Honda, Toyota, a lot of other luxury imports that are built in the middle or south part of the country would not have the same tax credit as Ford, Chevrolet, and Chrysler. So obviously these corporations have major billions of dollars of investment in the U.S. With plants and development and engineering, and so they think it's a little bit unfair play field, and we don't really know how that's going to shake out yet.
Well, I read, I think in the Wall Street Journal, somebody was complaining in the Journal that what this really was Biden helping out the unions. I don't have a problem with Biden helping out the unions personally, but that does seem a little unfair. I mean, if you're going to do it, you should do it for everybody. That's for sure. If you're really interested in fairness.
And the key right now is in California, Toyota is selling a fuel cell car, so a hydrogen fuel cell car that basically spits out some water out of the exhaust. But again, the big trouble getting away from the east or west coast is infrastructure for fuel cell. So, you're just going to see a lot of innovation. There's been more innovation in the car business in the last 8 years than the last 100 years. So there is a lot of things happening, and it's happening quick. And, not even to mention the driverless cars and the different levels of autonomous vehicles. But so it's an exciting time in the car business, and you've got to be on the edge and, aligned with a company or factories that want to pursue it.
Boy, you really do, don't you? I don't know how I'd feel about a driverless semi-trailer coming down the road, but they encourage that in California on their long, straight, there's the Pacific Coast Highway, for example, and other interstates where you can go right down the coast of California rather, and they encourage driverless trucks on those routes. And
Well,
that's a
I
pretty.
agree. And you wouldn't have to worry about it if it's a Decker truck, right?
I don't think so. No, I don't think. I don't know if that's. I should call somebody from Decker and ask them if they have those driverless trucks. But they're a 48 state run. I think they go up to Canada, Mexico, every place. They're a big operation, really.
So Matt was driving an electric truck, and it was a gas combustion engine electric combination. And we do our JMAR car cruise out here.
Yeah.
We used to have to pull over a generator to plug in the DJ station and his speakers and his sound system and everything. And Matt pulled up in his truck. He said, just plug in the back of my truck. Just like I can power a house, I can power all this music station out here for hours rather than listen to this little gas generator buzzing. So when you heard about the ice storm in Texas and people lost power in their homes, and they owned a Ford F-150, they were literally plugging into their truck in the driveway to power their house, and that lasted for up to 3 days.
Oh my God! Boy, that's
rough. It just evolution and technology is rolling at a rapid pace.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up with, but I love it. I love trying to keep up with it. I'm still trying to run my computer, to be honest with you, but I certainly am fascinated by innovation and human creativity. By the way, I think I can speak on behalf of the entire town when I say I would like to thank you and your entire staff for saving the JMAR cruise. Things change in our world. They change sometimes for the better, sometimes not for the better. But saving JMAR's cruise, that was something you and your staff once again did for the better. And again, I think I can speak for all of us when I say thank you very much. And I know that you have, and this is another reason, ladies and gentlemen, we should never go out of town to buy a car. I do not do that. Casey Johnson and his family, his wife Deb, his two sons Matt and Nick, and their wives have worked for years to provide a Thanksgiving dinner on Thanksgiving Day in their beautiful showroom out at Fort Dodge, Ford, Lincoln, Toyota. How many years has it been, Casey?
Well, thank you, Mike. It's been 14 years we've done it. We did not do it last year with COVID.
No.
And we're going to be extra cautious this year and have a lot of safe stations and everything. But it's been a labor of love, and in 2019, we served nearly 2,500 people. So we're expecting to deliver that many meals again a week from today on Thanksgiving Day, and it's a glorious day. And we have very, very great partnership with Iowa Central and the culinary students because we couldn't do it without them.
Don't you even deliver to shut-ins?
We do. So we'll deliver upwards of 1,000 meals on Thanksgiving Day. We have 40 teams of drivers that coordinate north, south, east, west in the city limits of Fort Dodge. And I delivered many years, and it's heartbreaking when you see some of the people of the loneliness and wanting to talk with people. And, their kids haven't forgotten about their parents, but they live out of state.
Right.
So their parents are alone, and they can't get out. And then from this, we privatized and developed Meals on Wheels, where we delivered 12,000 meals last year, and we deliver meals Monday through Friday.
I can't commend you enough, and I can't thank you enough. And again, I can speak for our entire community and area for Thanksgiving. That's a wonderful, wonderful thing. I think overall, we have a wonderful bunch of dealers here in our town now who are concerned about who are concerned about their community. And that's, again, ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to get that if you go out of town to shop. You're not going to get it. I can't emphasize that enough.
You mentioned something with your previous talker that was on the phone that called in, your guest speaker, and he mentioned Tesla, and Tesla was groundbreaking and a lot of innovation. Tesla will not set up a dealer network, and you have to buy a Tesla directly from Tesla.
Really?
And so there will never be a Tesla dealership in Iowa. And I'm not certain how they do the repair center. They may have one in Omaha, but so it's neat when you talk about community and partnership and philanthropy and all that kind of stuff. But so Iowa Auto Dealer Association and several dealer organizations across the country are really fighting Tesla on this and say, hey, you got a great car, you got a great technology, you need to have a dealer body.
Yes.
And they refuse.
That's again, ladies and gentlemen, car dealerships are one of the core retail businesses in our country. It's not just Fort Dodge. It's just not Webster County. It's in our country. And car dealerships, as with Casey's family, are the family jewel. I mean, Casey has Matt here in Fort Dodge and Nick down in Ames. Yeah, they're going to spend their life in the car business. And that's a wonderful family tradition that speaks to our state and certainly our country. And I would look askance at anybody who's doing what Tesla does. I wasn't in the market for a Tesla anyway. But I'll say I wanted to buy a Ford product that was an electric car. What would you recommend for the different, price ranges and those sort of things?
Well, as your previous guest mentioned, the Ford F-150, which is going to be called the Lightning, is going to be an all-electric truck that will start at $39,000.
That's decent.
Pretty attractive price. And you can add some bells and whistles and all that kind of stuff, but that's where it's going to start. And we're able to do that. Ford is investing $2.8 billion to build their own battery plant in Alabama, and you can't rely on suppliers or vendors for this critical component. And then on the other side, there's some purists that say, what type of minerals are we extracting out of the ground to make batteries, and what happens to batteries when we dispose of them? So there's issues on both sides, but obviously vehicle emissions is the key that everyone's talking about.
I'm still going to miss the sound of a roar of a Mustang with a big block in it. I'll tell you, I'll still miss that. It's going to take me a while to get used to the buzz.
Yeah, it's like driving a golf cart on the roads, and it's quiet and it's peaceful, but it's different.
Casey Johnson has been our guest. He is the dealer principal at Fort Dodge Ford Lincoln Toyota. Thank you so much, Casey.
Mike, you're a dear friend, and keep up the great work.
Thank you very much. This is AM 1400 KVFD.
Divine Intervention is online at yourfortdodge.com, on Twitter at JMike1400.
It's 328 News is next.
Right now, I'm getting bombarded with TV ads, postcards, and emails about Medicare Advantage programs, saying what I may be eligible for and what might be available. But don't tell me everything there is to know. Tell me what I need to know.
Clear up your Medicare confusion with simple, easy answers at easymedicare.com. That's the letter E, the letter Z, Medicare.com. Go to easymedicare.com or speak with a licensed agent at 1-800-991-4407 before December 7th. easymedicare.com.
Speak with a licensed insurance agent or visit easymedicare.com Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. EST, Saturday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. EST. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, has neither reviewed nor approved this information with regard to the federal Medicare program. easymedicare.com is powered by eTelequote Insurance Inc., a private duly licensed insurance agency appointed by Medicare Advantage, HMO, PPO, and PFFS plans and standalone prescription drug plans and insurance companies holding Medicare contracts approved by CMS. Enrollment in any plan for coverage is subject to insurance company approval. This information is not a complete description of benefits. Contact the plan for more information. Limitations, co-payments, and restrictions may apply. Benefits, premiums, and/or member cost share may change on January 1 of each year. You must continue paying your Medicare Part B premium.
In a world that's a little simpler comes the tale of Veltima fungicide. Swift, simple, and secure. It's a corn-growing story without all the drama. Unless you add totally epic music, really random sound effects, and a cool announcer guy. Ready for the blockbuster yields of the summer with Veltima fungicide from BASF. Coming soon to a field near you.
that. Bob used to perform fairly regularly here in Fort Dodge and in the surrounding area. I went up to Humboldt to see him one time. I can't remember the place.
Bob used to
But
perform fairly
anyway, what is that? An echo? Sorry. Anyway, yeah, Bob Zaney got a hold of me. I haven't seen him in a long time. I got to know him a little bit when he was around a lot. This radio station was had previous owners, of course. And that radio station group out of Nebraska definitely pushed Bob Zaney and his performances to the max in this area. I saw him at the Starlight one night. I'll tell you, you don't want to be a heckler during a Bob Zaney show. He's been doing comedy. I suppose he's 60, probably early 60s by now. But he's been doing stand-up comedy since he was a teenager. As a matter of fact, if you go to YouTube and type in Bob Zaney, you'll find some of his early performances. Now, he's probably, 5'9", 150, average-sized man now, but there was a time in his life when he was huge. He was way overweight. I don't know if he got the surgery or what he did, but he at one time was way overweight, and I'm glad to see he got his eating thing under control. Yeah, I struggle with that myself, by the way. I lost a lot of weight last year at this time because I went on the COVID diet, which I wouldn't recommend. I couldn't eat for a long time. I really couldn't. I lost over a 3-year period. I was trying to lose weight before the COVID thing, but over a 3-year period, I lost like 80 pounds, maybe a little bit more than 80 pounds, which is a third of my body weight at the time. So if you lose a third of yourself, of your physical being, that makes a big difference. So today, as I've kept most of the weight off, but it's a struggle. I still have an eye for sweets, like, come here, baby, you big, beautiful apple pie a la mode, that sort of thing. But I've had some success too. As I say, I've kept most of the weight off, which is important at my age and considering my past health problems. Most of them are related to age, of course, and the abuse of my body that I've done over the many, many years. I used to smoke Lucky Strike non-filter cigarettes, and now I carry an inhaler with me. Here, if you're watching on video, here's my inhaler. This is my friend that's with me all the time now. There it is. Isn't that great? And I got to use it 3-4 times a day. That's what smoking all those cigarettes got me. And I know there are some of you younger people, why did you ever start? Well, because back when I was a kid, all the adults smoked, and I wanted to look like an adult. And all the cool guys on TV smoked cigarettes. Robert Mitchum was famous for having a cigarette hanging out of the corner of his mouth. In those great old 40s and 50s movies. I was a Robert Mitchum fan, and of course John Wayne smoked. And Frank Sinatra, Sammy, the Rat Pack, Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Dean Martin, Joey Bishop, they smoked like fiends. Dean Martin lived till he was 77 somehow, Frank Sinatra to 82, and they continued to smoke right up to the very end. I can only assume that men in that profession hired trainers to keep them in dietitians, to keep them in good shape, except for the smoking, because apparently they weren't going to quit smoking, and they didn't. So, but I had to quit, and I quit for a very good reason. I found I couldn't breathe, and that's the truth. I tried to inhale, and I just couldn't do it. I mean, I'd struggle about every third or fourth breath. Of course, I went to the doctor who told me, you're going to have to quit smoking, or you're going to be near the end. Well, I wasn't ready to go to the end yet. I wanted to see my grandchildren grow, and they are growing. I love them to death. And of course, I need to be around for my son. He's my only son. I'm the only family he has, really. So those are all good reasons, as far as I'm concerned, the most important reasons in the world to keep going, and be here. I have work to do yet. My work on earth is not done. And I'll do it until the last day, to the best of my ability. I don't know the family of Brody Teskey I know the grandmother of Tristan Lara and Cade Lara. But as the Fort Dodge Messenger sports page points out today, I got to be sure to attribute great wrestling at UNI to the Fort Dodge Messenger. They own the news. Did I mention that all local news belongs to the Messenger? You can't repeat it. Anyway, Tristan Lara and his younger brother Cade, I watched them all through high school wrestling. And, of course, Tristan was terrific to watch. Cade was too. Cade had a problem at state tournament time because he always wound up wrestling Terry Brand's son. I don't remember what the son's name was now, but he could beat Cade. I thought Cade had him there. When Cade was a senior, and I was watching the final match in their weight class, Lara versus Brands, I thought Cade was going to beat him. I really did. He didn't, and that's unfortunate, but Cade turned out to be he is a great wrestler, and he's with Northern Iowa now with his older brother, Tristan. And I'm telling you all these things because if you know the Lara family or Teskey family personally, please ask if they can relay a message to these great Fort Dodge wrestlers, Brody Teskey, Tristan, and Cade Lara. I'd love to have them on the air to talk about their long and spectacular journey in wrestling. And I'm sure they'll be successful in life because if there's a sport that requires toughness and endurance and the ability to stick to a difficult task, it's wrestling. If you're going to be successful in wrestling, I think it's one of the greatest sports ever. It's an individual sport in a team concept. And boy, it's all on you out there. There's nobody out there to help you. Mom and dad out there to help you. They can be in the stands cheering, but it's all about you and what you've got inside you and how hard you've trained and prepared for the match. None of your friends or family or anybody else is going to be out on that mat with you. And these young men, and we take great community pride, I hope, in their accomplishments. We take great community pride in the accomplishments of Teskey and the two Lara brothers, that they are an example of the type of people that we have in Fort Dodge. Are they tough kids? You bet they're tough kids. But they also have that drive that will, barring some unforeseen event, they should be very successful in life. I understand there are financiers, high-level financiers in Minneapolis. And one of the principals, I should look this up for you. One of the principals is a former NCAA champion, not from Iowa, but he looks for wrestlers to be in his business because he understands that wrestlers are very disciplined and very tough and very goal-oriented. And that's great insight on his part, and he come about it naturally. Of course, he is a wrestler himself. But there have been a lot of successful wrestlers come out of Iowa in other businesses. Who was the guy from Mason City that wrestled for the Cyclones? Tim, gosh, I can't remember. But he went on to be a success. I think he had a little trouble. Well, I mean, people have trouble in life, but. Yeah, Tim, what the heck was his name? I actually went down to watch him wrestle one time. Not just him, but Bobby Douglas was coach, so this was a long time. But anyway, his first name was Tim. Last name started with a K. Doggone it. If anybody knows, it's 955-1400, 955-1400. If anybody can Google that for me, I would appreciate it. He was a national champion in the mid to late 80s, as I recall. But again, I hope we can get the Lara brothers and Brody Teskey on the air. I don't think I ever had them. Maybe I had one of the Laras on the air. Maybe I had Cade on the air with me once, but I don't remember exactly. I know I didn't have the other two on, Tristan and Brody. But hopefully that will change. This is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice for Dodge. I'm sorry to say that Mayor Bemrick will not be here in the next hour. Good afternoon. You're on the air at AM 1400.
Hey, I was going to say Joe Zuspan was a good wrestler wrestler at Iowa State.
He sure was. And I know
he was
it.
real successful down in Oklahoma.
Yeah. Is that where he lives now?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I knew a couple of the. Are you a Zuspan?
No.
Okay.
I wrestled, though.
Did you wrestle?
Joe did.
Yeah, that was in the late 70s then, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
75. 74, all the time.
Yeah.
Great sport. You're right.
It's a great sport, and the Zuspan family are really into that. I knew a couple of the Zuspans, and I know
Yep.
they're really into wrestling and take great pride in what Joe Zuspan did. And, I watched my son wrestled, and he was younger than Ryan Zuspan. Now Ryan would have been Steve's son, but Ryan was a good wrestler, a solid wrestler.
That's right.
And he didn't have any bigger fan in the stand than Steve and Steve's dad. I think wasn't Steve's dad's name Carl. I really didn't know him.
Carl. Carl was a good guy.
I didn't really know Steve's dad. I knew who he was to see him. But hey, thanks for the call.
You bet. You have a good day, and I'm glad you're talking about these boys.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to get them on the air, boy. I'll tell you, that's quite a. If you
I'll let 'em
wrestled,
know.
if you wrestled, you know what it takes to be a good wrestler.
Yeah.
And
I'll let them know too.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You bet.
All
Have
right.
a good day.
You too. It's 4:00 in the afternoon. The news is coming up. Thank you so much for calling, or for listening and calling. Anyone who has called in today. Certainly appreciate it. Thanks to our guest so far, Casey Johnson. The Johnson family out of Fort Dodge Ford Lincoln Toyota, of course, is going to put on that great Thanksgiving dinner here in a week from today. And David Osterberg of Common Good Iowa. We talk cars and electric cars. It's 4:00.
If you're into cars or just want to learn a thing or two, tune in every Saturday afternoon from 2 till 4 for the Under the Hood Car Show on AM 1400 KVFD, Fort Dodge.
A countdown on Capitol Hill. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News. The House preparing to hold the first vote, a procedural move on the president's Build Back Better plan, which would eventually still have a hefty lift ahead of it in the evenly divided U.S. Senate. No Republicans support it.
We have a supply chain crisis that continues to rage on. We have skyrocketing prices and a scarcity of goods. Our city.
Light tributes, a ceremony to read names aloud for those lost to 9/11 illness, and names of all lost in the War on Terror are being read on Veterans Day. Donate $11 a month at t2t.org.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD. If you don't listen to him, you suck.
That's correct. It's 4:44. I apologize for not mentioning earlier that a fine man in our town has passed away. He is Deacon Dan Carney, who passed away Tuesday at the age of 77. I met Dan Carney a couple of times. Really good guy. We weren't friends or anything like that and we didn't spend very much time together. As a matter of fact, as I just said, I met him 2, maybe 3 times, and he was a man deeply committed to his faith. As a matter of fact, I think Deacon Dan Carney was the one who, after Father Patrick Boehm left, and I certainly wanted some time devoted to the Catholic faith on this program, Father Feller didn't want to do it, which is okay. Not everybody's comfortable with a microphone. Nobody's comfortable at all with a microphone. I've seen that before. But I believe Dan Carney pointed me in Joe Coleman's direction. And Joe's, of course, is an equally devout Catholic, and he has a fine legal background, and he puts me to the test a lot, I'll tell you. But I believe that was Dan Carney's idea. And yes, the Catholic faith here, the Catholic Church here in Fort Dodge has certainly lost an important member, and I think here in town, whether you're Catholic or not, you'd have to agree that the passing of Dan Carney is sad news for all of us. So my deepest sympathy and prayers go to the family of Dan Carney. This is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. If you'd like to join this program, by the way, it's 955-1400, 955-1400. I've still got a lot of fall leaves around my office and those sorts of things, but it didn't feel like fall today. It really didn't. It didn't feel much like fall today. It was pretty. That wind went right through me. I'll tell you, I gotta start dressing warmer. You know, I played a little piece of little GTO a little bit earlier, so I could demonstrate through song the nature of the car culture that existed in the 1960s when I was doing my primary growing up. I was born in 1952, of course, but all I remember is there was a guy by the name of Ike that was important in the country, and I didn't know anybody named Ike, so I didn't know. I didn't know who this. I didn't have much appreciation over who this Ike guy was. But again, the car culture in our country, and certainly in this state, yeah, that was a real cool time to be a kid. It really was, and so I appreciate all those memories. I want to play something for you because you probably know if you've listened to this program for very long. I was going to play a clip of a young mother who lost her 6-year-old child in those horrible shootings in Connecticut. A lunatic young person came into an elementary school and killed children, 5 and 6-year-old children. As a matter of fact, if I could, doggone it, I can't find this now, but I will. This young mother said that this young lunatic and murderer came into school with an AK, or an AR-15, excuse me, and in 4 minutes shot 128 rounds. 4 of those bullets hit her little boy, 6 years old. Again, he fired 128 rounds in 4 minutes. So the purpose of this woman being on YouTube was to ask us, please, to make sure that automatic weapons are banned. You can't look at an attractive young woman, obviously in deep, deep grief that I can't even begin to fathom. You cannot look at that and not feel moved to your absolute core. I mean, I wanted to do something, even though she was only on YouTube. I wanted to do something immediately. And of course, when there's a death or mass death like that, you have no idea what to do. You're powerless, you're frustrated. It's agonizing, especially when there are children involved like that. If I ever knew anyone who had a deeply personal and maybe even rational argument as to why automatic weapons should be banned or semi-automatic weapons, it was in this young woman, but I tell you, I cannot agree with her. Most of the people who own those weapons would never think of doing something so psychotically evil as this young man did, who took the coward's way out, of course, and committed suicide after the police were on their way. The people in the school saw that he was coming, saw that he had this gun, and they locked the doors, and this guy broke in and went specifically for the little children to do something as ghastly as he possibly could, apparently because he was mad at his mother. His mother had made plans because she couldn't control him. His mother had made plans to institutionalize him. So his response was, and his mother had all these weapons in her house. And this young man went to find this AR and killed his mother with it. Then off to the school to show what a really big man he was. How really twisted he was. I don't know. I don't know what you feel when you hear about that massacre. But I feel just sickened. And if your first reaction is that, yeah, we got to ban these guns, I don't blame you. But I cannot agree. I cannot agree that these weapons or guns in general should be banned or kept out of the hands of ordinary people. Law enforcement is not allowed to act as they once were. We need guns for self-protection. A gun actually is a tool, and any tool can be tragically used. And I say this with the memory of this young mother in my head. I just can't, much as I'd like to, give her what she wants. If anybody deserves a little something, it's a poor mother or the parents of these slaughtered children. Homicide detectives, I'm told, in Connecticut came on the scene, and they, of course, had never seen anything like this. Never. Teachers trying to shield the tiny children's bodies and were killed themselves. It was, oh, God. How could a human being even think of doing something like that? You'd have to be an animal. I don't know. I'm trying to describe my deep feelings, and it's difficult for me. And I'm trying to convey to you why, as much as I'd like to give this young mother what she liked, I just can't do it. I just can't do it. Law enforcement, self-defense is a powerful argument. But more than that, I do believe, never mind the Constitution. I know that's pretty reckless for somebody to say, but I don't. Never mind a constitutional interpretation. That's what I was going to say. Because we've had activist judges, as you know well, who will suddenly find this right or that right, or the 14th Amendment is the most abused amendment I've ever seen in my life. I think the court has disgraced itself in some cases by their twisted and tortured concept of the United States Constitution. They seem to be extreme relativists. But anyway, I digress. Beyond the Constitution, I do believe we have a natural right to own and carry a weapon. And I think if we give that up, the consequences for our country will be severe. And I've tried to imagine the horror of the one classroom where all those children were killed, and I can't do it. I'm so glad I never saw it. Some of the policemen had nightmares about it, had actual PTSD, and I don't doubt that for a minute, to see a sight like that. God. I'm always willing to speak to anyone who disagrees with me. So if anyone has a position that's different than mine, that's fine. Yeah, I get pretty belligerent and opinionated sometimes, but I am willing to listen. So if anyone would like to discuss that, my position, I'm open to that, either today or another day. It's 4:54.
Divine Intervention is online at yourfortdodge.com, on Twitter at JMike1400.
With the iHeartRadio app, you won't ever have to miss out on your favorite shows and contests with this radio station again. Radio 20.